All right, welcome, Blockheads. This is episode 89 of Business on the Block for July 31st, 2024. This episode is pre-recorded a few days prior for your listening pleasure, and we'll explain that in a moment. Today on the podcast, we're tackling the AI search wars. OpenAI has entered the search market with an AI-powered Google killer. Meanwhile, at the same time, OpenAI is facing a potential loss of $5 billion in 2024. That's billion with a B. And the social media world is embracing a new trend called de-influencing. We will tell you what that is. This Business on the Block. I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Afternoon, everyone.
And Mike Neubauer.
Hello from the past.
That's right. So we're recording this episode on the Monday to be broadcast on the Wednesday, and we'll be hitting some stories that have just hit the tape later on. But story number one, I'll take you right in. OpenAI has announced its Search GPT. This is an AI-powered search engine. OpenAI announced its much-anticipated entry into the search market with Search GPT. This AI search engine will have real-time access to information across the internet. It will be powered by the GPT-4 models and is right now available only in limited release. But obviously the plan is to eventually build it into every GPT. So the talk early out the gate is that this is a meaningful threat to Google. We're going to start for thoughts on this one, Michelle, with you. What do you think about what OpenAI is doing? Should they be concerned about this?
Well, I think it was pretty early on, a couple of episodes after ChatGPT was released that Mike probably forecast that would eventually get to search. And
that was Marc.
We did talk.
I give credit where credit's due. It was Marc.
Oh, was it Marc? There you go. It was Marc. Sorry.
The intellects and the looks, that's my department. But keep going.
And, we did talk about that. We've said, does this mean ultimately that there'll be some kind of a search engine? And if that's the case, Google's in trouble and, et cetera, et cetera. And so we talked about that. I think that a couple of the interesting things are, while in theory, when you look at the article and you look at how they're going to give you the answers to your search query, if you scroll down a little bit, Mike, it's interesting. It's different. It looks different. You think, oh yeah, that could be pretty good. But ultimately, what worries me the most about that, and I guess a bit late to the party if I don't think Google and their algorithm manipulates everything, and we know they do. But it worries me about what you won't see with this. Like, for example, we still have pages on Google here in the UK. So I will quite often be, pedantic and go to, the third and the fourth and the fifth page to see what other kinds of things are available for me to look at if I'm looking and researching for a particular thing. So I'm really not quite sure about how that idea would work in this concept. And there's not really enough information yet about that to know that.
Mike, what do you think about this? Should Google be concerned?
So again, I didn't mean to cut Michelle off, but credit where credit's due. And, you called this. I fought you on it back then, mainly because when this first came out, the AI system was designed to sort of replace the bridge between a search inquiry and where they can access the information and expedite that into just providing the information. Right. So rather than providing a link to a website that provides the information that you're searching for, it would just provide you with the information that it was able to comb through and attain from that particular website. It looks like now they're entering into the portal business, which again is going to segue into advertising dollars, data collection, segmenting of people's search histories and what their inquiries are really all about. And then offer these predictive algorithms in the form of AI that are going to evolve much faster than Google. A lot of explanation to explain, yes, Google is in trouble now. They, sort of have been since they had a failed attempt with AI to begin with. But what I find really interesting about all this is that OpenAI, which, again, you can have your opinions on what they're doing or what they're not doing. Their business model has really been to provide this platform that other businesses can kind of come in and white label and leverage their machine in order for somebody to build something on their own and sell it using the technology. And we've seen Apple jump on board and start leveraging that. Facebook, Meta AI, whatever it is, like all these different pieces, it's designed to really take the model and the system and just sort of rebuild it. It seems like now they're actually taking the Amazon approach where they're going to have their own product line and they're going to introduce their own, search histories and product development tools that are really going to combat with the people that they're actually licensing the technology to in the first place. So is this sort of a monopolistic approach? Yes. Is it going to be successful? I guess we'll wait and see. But again, we're big components of history repeating itself. When are we going to learn that every single piece that we do on the internet is just a data grab for people or companies like OpenAI to come and segment and profit off of whatever search terms people are inputting?
I think that this is definitely a major threat to Google. I really do. I feel like Google has a big problem on their hands because their AI is not up to snuff. And I got a couple of thoughts on this. Two things. Number one, this is the same as the voice assist search. So if you ask the Amazon device, it's only going to give you one answer. We're in that world now. So that means SEO, I do believe, is doomed. I know a lot of companies make their money with this, but SEO has to change because with only one answer, you don't have a list, which means this is, in my mind, a marketing story and potentially a censorship story that more than it is about a technology piece. So if you're in the marketing world of anything to do in business, you have to start thinking of how do I get found now and when there's only one answer. And the answer is going to be content becomes more important, but not crap content, SEO generate articles, user generated content. In other words, other people making content about you and your thing is what will get found on this. So now we're getting into relationship building. So I'm thinking this through and I'm thinking to myself, this takes it back to the old world of going to dinners and golf courses. Like they better know and love you enough that they make stuff about you on the internet and then the machinery finds you. This is a whole different business world.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
We've talked before about, certainly in the last 8 to 9 months-ish, that connection and community is becoming way more important. There's been waves, and we've done it before, and we knew before the internet was invented that you networked and you went to things and drinks and you played golf with people and tennis and all that, and that's how you got accountants got their clients or lawyers got recommendations. And then kind of everyone went, oh, the internet's here, we don't need to talk to anyone anymore. And then for 15 years that was sort of how it was. And then even when the beginning of the Web3 blockchain, the NFT craze, everyone was like, oh, we don't need to talk to anyone. We don't need a community. We just need, people shilling us and, an audience and all of that stuff. And we saw how that turned out as well. And so we're at this juncture now, I think, where connection to people, which means, mastermind groups or, memberships or, labs, where people join and talk to each other, and then the equivalent of off online stuff. So people meeting in person, meetups and stuff like that. I think that is going to really come to the fore over the next couple of years.
I agree, and I'm a fan of that. I feel like good. Well, that whole world of like detached business is over. The hacking, algo hacks. I can't stand that.
But that's always going to be a thing. Whenever you have a technology, there's always going to be somebody that tries to circumvent or try to find the shortcut to get, the biggest bang for the little buck and little time. Where I think this, and again, to segue back to what I described about, how this is a threat and how they're going to monetize from the search perimeter. If they can outsource this in that same white label concept, this is going to change not only, your standard search engine, but the search engines that are actually embedded on other platforms like Amazon, right? Or Facebook. These are actual search engines. So if you can incorporate some sort of an AI tool to keep the algorithm as current as possible and as accurate as possible based around the user's predictive behaviors, that is the new SEO, right? So how do you train a model on a website or a storefront that you own to stay current with the AI search engine tools? You build an AI search engine optimization tool that works hand in hand with the way that it's producing the output.
I agree with that. Just to clarify that for the listeners, it's not, you want to make sure that you've got an AI enabled thing that's doing what you would have been done. You're not going to build guardrails, if you will, Mike. You're not going to build a tool that does this. It's the thing has to learn and understand and do it with it as it's happening.
Well, you could build a tool to continuously evolve with the tool that it's designed to monitor.
But it has to
right?
evolve, is my point. It's not a static tool. It is a learning. It's machine learning, is what it is.
So take that scene from The Matrix where the president of Zion is talking with Neo down in the basement. And his whole analogy was, he's like, we're relying on these machines to pump water, make air, basically keep us alive while other machines are trying to kill us, right? It's the same concept. You need to build a yin and a yang type of machine in order to keep your systems current and accurate with the people who are also engaging with this OpenAI concept. Now, is the term, hey, did you OpenAI that, going to become a thing? I don't think it's going to replace, hey, can you Google that? Like, it's not going to become that verb yet, but it'll be called something else.
The business world still Xeroxes things.
I guess.
No, I agree with you. I think that's a good assessment.
You might be AIing.
Too hard.
Yeah. But then again, everybody laughed at Yahoo.
Googling, tweeting.
I think you both are nailing it. The tweeting and Yahoo it's going to be a new company with a new name that has a new handle, and we'll adopt it. That's why X isn't working, because it already has tweet, already works. Anyway,
but what I fail to understand from a business perspective is how they're not branching this out into a sub organization. Right,
so?
Like they're still branding it with OpenAI. They're still like putting things under that umbrella. Like, why wouldn't they just do what they're doing with other clients? Build out another entity, call it,
Pineapple,
Gahoo or whatever, something, and then just leverage the technology on the back end.
Well, they're clearly trying to build a brand, right? The OpenAI name is what they're building.
I get that, but my point is that, again, if we're going to focus on a specific lane, it's not the same thing as your Chat GPT, which is what people assimilate with it right now, right? But I have a question for both of you. Where does blockchain fit into any of this?
So I'll tackle that in 1 second. At risk of annoying the technology listeners here, especially on X, these are technologists trying to build this tool. We don't expect them to be marketers, Mike, in terms of naming it. But blockchain, no, in terms of
people from Yahoo and Google were not any different.
I'm saying that OpenAI is not concerned about the marketing branding element of it right now. They are just trying to build that, literally lock, stock, and barrel, get this thing so it's a thinking, breathing. They want the AGI officially. That's all they're getting.
And maybe that's why they're losing $5 billion, which we'll talk about next. Shortly. But
blockchain, I do feel, has a place in this, Mike. So blockchain is not going to be a search engine of any type, right? But all it will do is verify things. And so there's going to be a need for the results I'm given. Is that accurate? How do I will nothing to compare it to anymore. I don't know. I can't, if I'm only told Coke and I can't even see that it was a Pepsi or a Dr. Pepper, how would I know? And so that's where blockchain could be of value.
See, that's where I push back. I push back because the blockchain itself, the premise of it is a filing cabinet. It's a storage facility. And that search history or the information provided by the output of the search cannot be manipulated once it's generated. But you can always refer back to it. You can always go back to a previous block in the chain. It lives there forever. So that can be, I guess, that same system of a file storage cabinet where you search back years and you pluck out the different files that are already into the system. And again, that could be an AI tool that can expedite that process. But the storage capacity, instead of saying or claiming that certain things are erased from the internet or don't exist anymore, there will be systems in place that can easily pluck that out and say, no, this is what it was at this period of time when this block was written.
So here's the problem with that control. And I agree with you, but you're talking about being able to reverse engineer the secret sauce of a search algo. Meaning if I if I know that this thing is using bad information, because let's just say a search term is missing that should obviously be there, or I'm getting information I know is inaccurate when it gives me back the one answer, I can use blockchain theoretically in the years ahead and say, okay, this is what it should be doing. You can back into what this thing did. So these companies with a closed source search algo are at risk when there's a blockchain.
Of course they are, but that's the whole premise behind blockchain, is to decentralize the system.
But
right. So that's how it comes in.
It's a very closed-ended
Absolutely,
system.
including OpenAI, which we see, and that's something that I will give myself credit for. There still is a tremendous amount of fingerprints on this technology.
You called that earlier, Mike.
Levers and controls that be able to be pulled here.
So then from a business perspective, I think I dropped this in the chat with us behind the scenes earlier before the show. That really gives advantage to Grok, because if what Elon ends up building is what he says, it's going to be a literal open system. And that's what people really want.
Okay, again, this gets back to our X versus Threads conversation, right? Which, that's center stage of debate
Buckle
too.
Up.
But no, it's this other platform that is potentially better than other people give credit for. But the reality is, where are the people, right? What are they used to? What are they addicted to? And that's not going to change, right? Unless it's something, again, that makes them better waffles. It's not going to flip them from one app to the other. So I don't know if Elon's version is going to, be light years behind what OpenAI has already been able to put forth. Now, he has the spotlight and the soapbox to do that, and that's what I think makes it a little bit more interesting. But, look, we've seen evolutions like this in technology, and sometimes those later evolutions surpass the original bit. I'll turn to gaming, right? And Nintendo was the cat's pajamas for years until PlayStation came out. Then Nintendo became sort of like, all right, well, they're innovators in the technology, but the graphics are never going to be similar to what Sony or even Xbox puts out.
You know what I would compare it to? And again, I don't think it's a technology argument. I think this is a marketing conversation. BlackBerry over to the iPhone. Like, people used to use their fingers and typing on keys on a BlackBerry. You guys remember this? And then we're in that inflection point where there's a better way to do it right now. And that means a shift in eyeballs, a shift in attention, the shift in the business marketing means that all of a sudden you're going to have a market share shuffle. That's
a better app that makes waffles.
Yes. But Google is going to be the one and they're fighting to try to figure out how to SEO this. Like, they're trying to figure out how to fit the horse into a car.
But Mike, what I'd like is an app that makes better waffles rather than a better app that makes waffles. Do you know what I mean? We're at the point now where some of this stuff is just.
I've eaten in the UK, Michelle. I don't know.
Well, the problem that I think, first of all, this is not going to be an overnight, Google moment, right? Because there are still a tremendous amount of people globally and businesses, particularly businesses, which are usually slower behind on some of these things, that haven't even scratched the surface on AI yet. So they're not going to abandon the $10,000 that they piss away on a month on Google ads because it is generating some of their business. Yeah. Some of these phones that are still linked within Google, some of the search perimeters, like, people are not going to switch those habits overnight.
It won't go away, but it will shuffle, Mike. This is where market share changes happen. Like, people still advertise in the local newspaper, in the classifieds, in a paper newspaper. It still happens. But those firms fall out of favor. Right. This is the story of VaynerMedia comes and eats the lunch of all these companies that don't understand social 10 years ago. Like, this is what's about to happen to Google.
But I think, too, the other thing, to Mike's point, is that, is this a Kodak moment for Google?
No, they don't go out of business. But I think if they do what they're doing now, trying to figure out how to SEO this, they're going to become, they lose the search engine business. They'll still be the small company business backbone. They'll still be in the schools. They'll still be a company, but as an infrastructure firm, not as a search firm.
So what I fail to understand on any of this is that it's arguable that OpenAI is light years behind Google in the search engine business. Is that accurate?
It's arguable that OpenAI is behind Google, meaning like I think. Oh, in terms of search, yes.
In terms of
search, of AI,
yeah.
No, not in terms of AI. So I guess we have sort of like a weird, comparison or basis to compare things with at this point, because Google, even though Gemini is like, garbage and their reputation has been soiled from their minute they launched it, if you search for anything on Google, the first thing you see is a Gemini result, whether you realize it or not.
Yes.
Right. And so, again, we live in a world where people will read headlines rather than clicking on another website to attain the information that an AI system can provide them a summation for.
That's not going to change though, Mike.
Exactly my point. So this is where I would say Google is somewhat safe in providing the results that they have. Regardless on whether Gemini is accurate or not, they're still going to have the more accurate links that are positioned based around the user's search history and the input that they put in.
I'm a believer in reality. I feel like that they can search history all they want. Gemini can put up whatever answers it want. At the end of the day, if it is, it will be. Meaning that people will figure it out. People talk. So if I'm getting secondary search results on my Gemini, if George Washington is black and on my Gemini, I'll eventually realize from the people I'm talking with, I know Gemini says that, just don't go to that restaurant. It sucks. I think that the truth wins in the end. I really do believe that.
I also feel that the different results based around the search are important to discuss too. If you're searching for information, like is George Washington black, and they provide you with an output of what that information is versus what is a nice restaurant to eat near me, I don't know if AI is going to be able to provide those tools accurately, at least on the front end. I think Google has positioned themselves to be the go-to on that.
This raises a new issue which is not part of this conversation, but the quality of your prompt is always the quality of the result. We know that with AI. People don't know prompting from a hole in the wall. Like your average person in the world just asks the question. So the concept of critical thinking and how you structure the question matters. That's going to impact the results that Google or Gemini or OpenAI, whoever. This is going to be an issue now.
That evolved with Google too. Nobody knew how to Google things.
I still think that,
but there are, look, I think that, I still get a lot of people, like I'll have people say to me, oh, I'm looking for such and such, and I get nothing when I look at Google.
Because they don't know how to Google.
And I do it, and then I send them 25 links that they go, oh my goodness, I never saw that, I never knew that, or whatever. So, location may be some of that, but ultimately how you ask the question.
Most kids today, and I love my own kids.
The output.
I've gotten this from my kids several times. I can't get the same answers out of this thing that you do. How do you do it? It's not the machine. And Mike, I think that's going to be a problem for people with prompting. But
believe it or not, there's SEO implications with that as well.
Now we're getting into the hack, and I agree with you. Keep going.
So if depending on how you ask the question, the machine/algorithm will learn how to provide the output that you're more likely to interact with.
Right.
And that's all predicated around every single thing you do online is measured, captured, segmented, and repurposed for some profitable reason.
Which is where Google has an advantage, at least right now.
Exactly. But as we move into the other topics of this discussion, we'll discuss on how this announcement of search-based GPT or search-based OpenAI does open the door for potential other options for businesses to capitalize on targeted segmented audiences, and even jump into all of the other sectors that GPT has in other apps, in other devices, in other websites. Like this is the Facebook model on steroids.
I think that you raise a good point there, Mike, and we didn't say this earlier, but how you segment your audience is going to become a potentially new product for Google if they want to stay competitive. They're not going to out-search OpenAI. Like it's easier to get one answer than 7 and figure it out. People go with what's lazy, but helping people get to what will be more, relevant for them.
Google has that now.
I know, but no search. They're doing it on the back end with search. Like you don't know how you get the results you get. I think
of course you do.
What do you mean?
Well, if you're logged into Google, Google has a history of everything you've done, right? And again, let's switch to our business hat for a second. As a business, you can log in and actually target the right customer base based around geographic location, based around interest levels, based around age, demographic, anything, gender, whatever it is. Like you can segment your ad or your target to be in front of all these various people, right? That is, again, the data collection tool, which is the nucleus of all this, including what we're going to see with OpenAI. In fact, that's going to make it worse, because any of the activity that you do puts you into this box. That box will basically create a machine that's going to predict how you're going to interact with various things. And this is where the control of the narrative and the fingerprints on this lever are still very, very important information to discuss here.
To your credit, Mike, you did raise that issue way back when, and I think that folks are now asking that, and especially in light of the concerns around deepfakes with the U.S. presidential election, missing information on Google. I think that people are going to start to ask, like, well, I don't understand how is it getting these results? What goes into this? And that's where I think OpenAI's got an advantage. We'll see, but this definitely turns search upside down. In my opinion, I think that Google has a real problem here.
I agree.
Right. I'm going to take us to story number 2, if that's okay, which is about the problem for the other side of the coin. OpenAI could lose $5 billion this year. That's for all of 2024. Obviously, the GPT maker is not happy about this. They are at risk of running out of cash within 12 months. This is according to analysis by The Information. OpenAI reportedly burned through $4 billion of cash so far this year. Their annualized revenue is reportedly $3.4 billion. So they are not covering their nut here. The real question here is, are they going to make money soon? The investor group are asking questions. Silicon Valley is under pressure. And if they don't, how are they going to stay afloat? We'll start
covering your nut. That's a good Olympic opening ceremony pun.
Mike, we'll start with you.
I was going to say,
ahead,
who would have thought that stealing other people's stuff might cost you money?
Right.
Well, they still haven't been in trouble for it. So, Mike, we're going to start with you on this one. That's a huge cash burn. The world has never seen anything like this. $5 billion in a year is an awful lot of money. A lot of people are losing their shirt who are trying to fund this thing in the hopes they're going to get rich. What do you think OpenAI is going to do? Do you think this is, do you think we're seeing OpenAI go out of business?
I mean, that's a stretch, but I really feel like this is deja vu. We talked about something like this a few episodes ago, back in the 70s or 70 episodes, something like that, where GPT or OpenAI was going to be threatened with, bankruptcy, and they're just not making enough money. And so one of the bigger issues with a small business is, not utilizing your capital that you have when you started the business in a way that is laser focused to get the machine up and running and to provide some source of generated revenue. Now, I'm not suggesting that ChatGPT didn't do that. I'm just saying that they have potentially spread themselves so thin now, because the next update is more critical to the users than the actual understanding and application of the technology. So all of this costs money. You take Microsoft into this equation, and then out of this equation, that hurts financially as well. Now, I don't know what their financial commitment is regarding their annual budget. I just know that they sort of removed themselves from the liability on the board in order to not be in the crosshairs when an announcement like this comes about. But bringing us back to our first story, that is a model, right, that is proven to work and to generate capital. If you have a search-based model or algorithm, companies will go and advertise to that based around the data that search perimeter collects. Now, are they going to put themselves in a position to monetize from a business perspective? I think they're very, very, very naive to think that businesses are going to jump on this with trillions of dollars like they would in a Google search at this point. And, I'll reference the movie. What's that movie with the intern where they worked at Google and they went to the pizza place and the guy's like, I rely on, regular people. Like, that's where we're at with the AI version of this, where businesses may not know it exists. They're a little hesitant to dump whatever little marketing dollars they have allocated to a situation that they know already works and refunnel it to a spot that maybe even the users don't know where to go. But bottom line here is, it's a tremendous nut, to put it in your words, to burn and to not cover. Does this spell the end? I don't think so, because the technology is sort of that toothpaste out of the tube. So somebody's going to come scoop it up and invest more into it just to keep it alive. It's too powerful not to.
I don't think that Microsoft's going to let this baby go. We'll see. Michelle, what do you think about this? Is OpenAI, are they going out of business?
Well, I think that when you think about how often they're making announcements these days as well, and we know that stuff costs a lot of money. You know, they've got the minions behind the scenes on their little bicycles pedaling exceptionally fast to try and make these new things work, and that costs a lot of money. Anyone who employs even one person knows how much that costs. And one of the important things, I think, in this particular article is about the fact that a vast majority of users are free currently for the Chat GPT. The earlier, I don't even know, is it 3.5 that the free people get now? And that costs money in terms of servers and, keeping things running and all of that stuff. And you're getting $0 from those people. So I agree with Mike. I think that ultimately they need to get to some point of revenue generating, whether it be through, this query search was brought to you by, your ops guy or Invictus Communications or whatever. And, people hope that they're going to get exposure through that sort of stuff. I think that we are living in interesting times, because for a company to, and I'm not saying that they're not blinking, but for a company to do this means that they're prepared to do it and there's a longer term reason for it. So to lose this kind of money means that they ultimately have a goal of making 10 times that amount, don't they?
We know what their goal is. It's AGI. Which you're right. That will make them 10 times.
Somebody still has to pay for that.
I was going to say, they're still going to have to find a way to make money from that.
So that, can I jump in, Michelle? Or you? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go.
I think that ties to our first story. So I want to talk about two quick things, and I'll make my point. Burn rate and advertising. The burn rate versus brand equity is like a balance, like a seesaw. And this company is burning money like we've never seen before. But they're so famous, and Sam Altman, and their brand equity is to the moon. So meaning they've got people willing to keep giving them cash. So they've been able to pull this off. Amazon did the same thing on a smaller scale, but at the time that was also massive. Losing money, people kept giving them cash because they knew eventually it was going to pay off. So that's the bet. And I agree with everything you say, Michelle. The second part of that is advertising. You guys may remember 2005, I forget when they were founded, but Reddit's slogan for a while, they were the front page of the internet. You remember this? Yeah. That could well become OpenAI, to your point, Michelle. The front page of the internet is, if that's the best search engine out there and everyone starts there, then just the banner across the top of that page is worth billions. And so I think search saves them. I think they're going to win that search battle. I think they're going to get the revenue from that. And at the back end of that, to your point, Mike, Microsoft will then welcome with open arms. They take back their prodigal son, and they're not selling this thing. I think that's but that'll take a few years to play out, but that's what I think is happening.
The credibility needs to stay intact, though. If they start messing around and censoring things and moving things away because of what, like, they just need it to be a free flowing concept of whatever it could scotch tape around the internet, which, by the way, is full of crap also, right? So, you wouldn't expect anything less, but the system needs to learn based around whatever less crap is out there sort of gets weeded out. Right. You can put in a search for anything. Why is the sky green? And it will give you some answer about why there's a specific hue in the way that the atmosphere and the gases intertwine that really provides a green construct of the way the sky is, but our eyes perceive it as blue. So you can get crap all over the place. The reality is that this system needs to stay credible and therefore threatening to people who are trying to control the narrative. If they make that deal with the devil, then what better are they than Google?
I don't want to get conspiracy. Oh, maybe I do. Hold on a second. Grab your hats. We may as well do this.
Okay.
We weren't going to conspiracy theory, folks, but Mike, your last comment prompts this. I feel that these guys, OpenAI, are in cahoots with the quote unquote system that is controlling the narrative, as you put it. They just stolen everyone's content to make their product. We know that. The internet's been raped, basically, and they're not in trouble. There's been no fines, there's no oversight committee, there's nothing. The government gets information from them. I think that these guys have already, if you're talking about the credibility card, they've already lost that. They're the new Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, but like this could become a Rob from a Peter, not a Peter Pan, Robin Hood kind of thing, right? Where you rob from the rich and you give to the poor. So if they rob that data from big tech and they provide that accurate data to the people, nobody's going to care. But the reality is that they robbed it. Well, they robbed the segmented data from these big tech firms and put their claws into their systems too. Right. So, I mean, I'll take a minute and I'll describe this because I think it's important. Facebook's biggest asset that they've ever made is what's called the Facebook Pixel. It's a line of code that is embedded on any website around the world. The embedding of that code opens the door for Facebook to come in and monitor the traffic of any user on that network as if they were on Facebook. So they can capture, segment, and repurpose the data that's happening off of their platform because these people voluntarily imported that particular code. Think about the resources that OpenAI has with all of the white labeled content that's on every app, business website, social media platform out there. It's that same model on steroids. So why wouldn't they be able to monetize from it? Again, my whole argument is that from the credibility perspective, forget about tech, forget about the powers that be that are pulling the levers on this. They need to be accurate about the information that's being pumped out to the people. This needs to be a better version of community notes that's currently on X.
So as a quick aside, and this connects, JP Morgan, if you didn't watch it in the news, recently built their own proprietary LLM. Basically, it's a ChatGPT in-house. Morgan Stanley did one similar, because they don't want their people using ChatGPT, and they are. And I think JP spent something like $17 billion on this. It's an enormous LLM suite, they're calling it, if you want to look it up. But the point is, companies already know you can't trust, quote unquote, this, like your data is at risk. And so everyone's building their own. So ChatGPT, they've got a great tech, but they do not have the buy-in of arguably a guy like Elon Musk, or in the old days, Steve Jobs, who's going to protect your privacy. Thoughts on that?
I saw an eye roll.
Oh, is that an Elon eye roll?
Yeah. I wouldn't trust Elon to protect
I'm not
me
saying he's
from
trustworthy, but
anything or anybody.
I'm just saying the LLM world already knows that ChatGPT is going to steal your data.
But again, this is
Sure.
something that's
So
not
does
in
Twitter.
communication. Yeah, so does everything. But that's not the forefront. Look, when this thing first launched, and again, thinking back to the conversation, because obviously we talked about it back then about it being a threat to Google, nobody really thought for a second about how the data is, where the data is being stored and repurposed, right? Like we knew that was a possibility because we live in this world every day, but the average user, they don't see it that way, right? So, from the data collection perspective, right, that is still the currency, regardless on what technology platform it is. And to your point, they bank robbed the entire internet of that data, to the point where we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. They ran out of money from the vault that they were, pillaging. Yes,
but people know it. So I don't think, if ChatGPT is not trustworthy, I'm not saying it's not, but like Gemini had that problem with George Washington. If it's viewed as not trustworthy and the answers I'm getting, that's a brand problem. That's a money problem eventually for them.
It depends how many mistakes there are, because everybody makes mistakes, right?
They seem to make a lot over in Silicon Valley.
Well,
all right.
Sure. But we're still all using their services, aren't we?
I think that the thing to watch for is going to be, does search become their bread and butter, meaning OpenAI? If they can start making money from that, that solves their $5 billion problem. And of course, creates one for Google. But I think that that's how it goes, because we're talking better mousetraps here.
Well, everything is relative to the control of information. And if they have the confidence that whatever information they're pumping out is training people and their thought process, then yes, it will have tremendous value. But again, I'm sitting here with a muted megaphone stating that this cannot change the perceptive of the way that we think. It cannot. We cannot start thinking about what the potential output of an AI algorithm is going to provide, or else we're going to become slaves to this entire technology in one way, shape, or form, whether it's through search or whatever other technological app that we embed ourselves with, including our cars, our smart devices in our homes, anything.
I think Michelle has my back when I say that your megaphone is never muted, Mike.
Well, we'll see.
All right, I'm going to take us to story number 3. That's surprise conspiracy corner there for the last story of the majors, and then we'll do the speed round. The hot new trend sweeping through social media right now is de-influencing. Social media users are revolting against influencers in what's being called the de-influencing trend. Basically, videos are rejecting the blatant consumerism of influencer culture. Now, there was a study done by Credit Karma. 69% of American social media users have chosen not to purchase items via social. So there's basically a long string of young people making pop-up videos urging viewers not to buy products that are being hyped by paid influencers. And they're calling out the influencers and calling out the products. And most of these folks are nobodies, but there's a lot of them. So they're saying like, hey, right now, Kim Kardashian is pitching this handbag. Here's why you don't want to waste your money on this thing. And so it's happening in enough large scale that it's gotten a term and it's becoming the thing. So thoughts around this, Michelle, this is closer to your world of marketing. How do you explain this?
As I was reading through the article, and glad to see that at the end BuzzFeed agreed with me. I thought, well, essentially these new de-influencers are just the new round of influencers on social media.
Exactly.
Keep going.
Yeah. So, and what they're doing this time is they're saying, oh, don't go and buy X, Y, Z. But eventually they'll be telling you to buy something else, or based on their views on those videos, they'll have a can of Pepsi next to them next time, or, ad placement or whatever, because ultimately companies move where the eyeballs are for their products. And that's what will happen, and that's what they'll do.
Mike, is Michelle right?
I mean, with any of these types of content, somebody throws money at them and they jump ship right away, right? And therefore, to exactly that point that you brought up, Michelle, they become the next round of influencers. But I also fear that this is nothing more than a trend. I remember trends when people were eating, the dishwasher pods or the laundry pods. So that was a trend. Did it last? No, mostly because people are idiots. The ice bucket challenge, whatever trend is out there is just trendy. The influencer business model has sort of, I guess, survived the test of time with respect to businesses jumping in, profiting from, other people's followership. I would never, imagine that the de-influencer campaign would surpass the influencer campaign. But I also want to know who in the hell is answering a survey by Credit Karma on this, because that's got to tell you the type of people that influences this type of model. Or
they probably got offered an interest-free credit card if they filled in the survey.
Probably. And then you fill it in for whatever you want. But again, you ask people stupid questions, whether they practice what they explain or not is a different story. Right. And, I'm willing to bet that regardless, if people don't buy something from an influencer that says it, they know that product exists. So maybe it's just a branding and an advertising model instead of an actual point of purchase.
So I'm going to actually go a little conspiracy on this one. I actually believe that influencers, you're right. Both of you, I think you're accurate in that this is the new version of influencer. But I think influencing is on its way out. I really don't believe that people buy into this influencer thing, even if it's a de-influencer. To me, it reeks of algo hack. It's the same thing as the NFT grifters. It was the crypto bros, Wall Street bets. They all had their moment in the sun. This is influencing, pro or D.
We did a story 20 shows ago or whatever it was that none of them are making any money.
No,
you can't. It's a flooded market.
Yeah, people who are getting, 20 million views on TikTok and have, a gazillion followers are flipping burgers at McDonald's because they can't actually pay the rent with their influencer income.
But Mike, automobiles are a flooded market, as you put it, and yet Tesla comes in and makes a killing. It's because there's a better product there. There's your waffle maker there. This is de-influencing, or if it's a version of influencing, is not a real product. This is not a service that I would pay for.
As a business, there's a lot of businesses that pay for that. I've been associated with several businesses that have been.
No, I'm talking from the perspective of the consumer. Yes, as an owner of a company, I would pay an influencer. I can see where I would, if Gary Vaynerchuk is going to promote Invictus, I'm going to pay him. But as a consumer, I want to go buy something or not buy something. I'm not sure. I wouldn't pay to have the opinion of Kim Kardashian on which perfume I should buy my wife.
But I don't think the user, I mean, there's obviously memberships and inside information, and that's the brand that somebody like Kim Kardashian builds so that they can have that core group of followers that will pay them that exclusive NFT membership to have the inside information on certain things. But I would argue that the majority of the influencers aren't monetizing in that capacity. They're trying to monetize on the products that companies are paying them to promote to a free audience that they've built either by paying for that or organically growing it themselves.
Affiliate links, affiliate income.
This is, to me, the difference between a transactional-based business and a trust-based repeat revenue business, right? This is advertising versus content marketing. You've got influencing. I can just cough up some money and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but there's no relationship being built there. And I think you touched on the conspiracy side of things earlier as well. Could this potentially become another revenue source for something like OpenAI as it coalesces with their search-based system? Can they create an influencer-based system that's really targeted to specific people that companies will pay them for that data and information? I think that the influencer thing is the perfect way to destroy your brand. Perfect. And if you're looking for a long-term business play, you do not want to be in this. For a long while, Vine influencers, you guys remember this way back in the day? The internet was new and there was some familiar faces. And so it was kind of like in the 1960s, the news anchors in America were trusted by the households to tell them their news. You
Whenever
had that
I hear
little
Vine, I think LPs.
But like when Casey Neistat
not
tells
vinyl, Vine, not
Vine.
vinyl.
I know. It's just that it's the era of the internet that it was records.
Yeah.
My point is that when Casey Neistat tells me that Apple's ripping me off with my phone battery, I trusted him at the time. You know, we're going back on didn't really happen, but I'm just saying people knew who he was, or a Gary or Tony Robbins tells you something, you believe him. Oprah. That worked in the beginning of the internet. Today, I think that people don't trust anything anymore, especially knowing fake news, AI generated, deep fakes. The era of tech is dooming the era of influencing and even de-influencing.
And one of the things, like I can take it to, let's go back to the Olympics in Paris again. Snoop Dogg carried the torch in Paris. Snoop Dogg, American, pot smoking, like nothing
Gangster
wrong
rapper.
with the guy. Yeah, nothing wrong with him whatsoever. Not making any disparaging comments about him, but they picked him to run in Paris for carrying the Olympic torch. Like that is not a brand. Like that is a brand disrupt. Like that isn't
like everything else at the Olympics.
Well, yes, but just taking that as a particular thing. Let's not talk about painted blue Smurfs in fruit bowls, but when you look at something like that, people looked at that and went, hang on, Paris, Snoop Dogg, it just didn't go together.
So what is the line?
So that's what we're talking about here.
What's the line between an influencer and a famous person? Fame versus influencing.
I mean,
you would have said originally actors and musicians were more likely to be famous.
But they got famous for something else, not for being. When Paris Hilton was famous for being famous, that was the birth of influencing. I don't.
Sure.
When Steve Jobs is famous because he runs a successful company, that's legit. When Snoop Dogg is famous for what? That he smokes a lot of weed? Like he had some hits back in the 90s? To me, that's like, that's not an influencer. That's an influencer, but that's not a fame based business thing. I don't think.
Well, I think we're neglecting an important piece here in the content creation sector, right? Like an influencer, they do create that content to promote that brand however they want. And, you know, we talked about that a couple episodes ago as well, as far as, you know, maybe that model or that industry is sort of at another pivot point where they need to figure out what's the best way to create content in order to monetize. That's essentially what an influencer does, just within the perimeters of whatever product or brand is paying them to do that. Now, some of them are organic. I mean, we all know of success stories of people that try to do it organically. You know, somebody has an infatuation with tequila. They're going to do tequila reviews. Before you know it, they build a following of those organic tequila reviews, and then they get sponsored by either a tequila brand that wants to white label it with their name on it, or just provide any sort of, you know, promotional piece beyond that.
That's not a long-term company. When Mr. Beast is famous for his videos, and then all of a sudden he turns it into Feastables, well, now he's a businessman.
And now he's a pedophile. So, you know, where does it all end?
When Gary Vaynerchuk was... Go ahead, Michelle.
I said he is. I've missed something.
There's not him. There's accusations around one of his Chandler or one of his kids that helps him make the videos. Anyway, the point is, I think that if the takeaway for the business angle of this show, if you're an influencer, want to be an influencer, or you're in the influencer space and you don't have a real business, I think you have a short shelf life. You're in trouble.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, just scroll down to where it almost at the end, the Heidi Becker. No, not that one. Keep going. Next one. The next one. So this woman here, it says, and I'll quote, oh no, don't turn her on. Oh my God, we don't want to hear that. It's giving in my brain rot overconsumption coded slam poet era is the caption that goes with her videos. Do I need to put that into Chat GTP to translate it for me?
Put that in English. 100%. These are people trying to be cool.
Anyway.
All right, I'm taking us into the speed round at this point. So the purpose of the speed round, folks, is we're going to do a one and done, thoughts around a couple of stories that are breaking, and we're not going to have the in-depth analysis, but we thought this was a little fun ad. Coming out of futurism, investors are suddenly getting very concerned that AI isn't making serious money. Increasing number of investors believe that the billions of dollars they're putting into AI should have by now produced wildly profitable business results. Big tech under pressure. What are your thoughts on this one, Mike? Your world. What do you think?
Well, I think that these guys are about to join Zuckerberg under the bridge, living in the tent when he went all in on Meta AI or Metaverse. So look, again, I think that these guys try to be everything to everybody and they just forget about just sticking within their own lane. And this is a pure example of what could happen.
Michelle, thoughts on this? Investors are concerned. OpenAI not panning out.
I think my comment in our private chat still stands true. It's an Australian saying. I'm not sure if anywhere else in the world do it, but no shit, Sherlock was what I said. We saw this coming. How are they going to make money? I think was in our first episode when ChatGPT came out, and it's still a question. But you know, the top end of town never likes to be left out of anything, so they're jumping on the bandwagon before they even know which direction the train's going.
I'm going to echo Michelle's comments, but I'm going to add from my Wall Street background. We have shifted in the market cycle. This headline proves to me we've gone from greed into fear. The market psychology is now about, wait a minute, it's not that I want to make $1 billion. I don't want to lose my money. And that is a new thing, and that is something we should be aware of. All right, story number 2 in the speed round. The second story is so new, we don't have an article for you yet, but just a few hours ago, about 5 hours ago, we are recording this on Monday, the 29th of July. Donald Trump Jr. has mentioned that no search results are coming up under AI, the assassination attempt for Donald Trump on ChatGPT or on Gemini. And also, if you Google President Donald, it will not turn up Trump. It comes up with duck and a whole bunch of other choices. So the argument that they're memory holing anything around Trump right now on Google is the accusation. Now, this will come out on Wednesday, this broadcast. I'm sure by then we'll have a lot more to share with you. But the early thoughts, because a few hours old here. Mike, what do you think?
This is 1984. I mean, you said that in the chat, right? This is the rewriting of history, and I was old enough to remember 2 weeks ago. So, look, to be blunt, I don't know how important this is about the information that's out there. I think it's more important that the attempt is front and center in the stage on the censorship side of things. But who in the hell at this point, with all the crap that's out there and the noise that's been going on for the past decade, who the hell is trying to search for who President Trump is?
Michelle, what do you think around this?
Maybe that's why there's no answer.
Thoughts on the accusations here?
Yes. Yeah. So I put it into ChatGPT. It gave 5 instances. It was not one of them, the July 2024. And I just said, tell me about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And it gave me other things. Then I said, what about July 2024? And it actually came up with information then. So it goes back to what we said earlier. Perhaps it's about how you prompt and what you ask for.
Yeah, that's
but this is becoming an answer in Congress, right? Like, oh, did you do this? No, I didn't do it. But my entire team did. I'm just not going to tell you it that way.
I think
this is censorship at its finest.
The business takeaway is
but in the UK, I put in President Donald and Trump is the first thing that comes up. So it's only in America.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
They're saving you from yourselves.
My quick take is that
Right.
maybe I should have my tinfoil on, but I feel like there is always something. You got to be concerned about what information you're getting. You're not always getting all of it. So do your own research. All right, I'm going to wrap us for the week. Final thoughts on the big stories we did this week. As a quick reminder, OpenAI announces Search GPT. OpenAI is also losing $5 billion a year, and de-influencer is becoming the trend in social. Michelle, what do you think about the big takeaways? What was your one understanding from this conversation?
I think all of these things, even the de-influencing thing and investors and OpenAI and search, etc., is that it is becoming increasingly tricky to find new ways to make money.
Mike, what was your big takeaway from the 3 stories today?
Once again, it's about data collection is the currency behind all this, right? And, there still is a very much of a profitable gain for any of this stuff. And with the data collection comes the ability to try to control on how that data is obtained and then repurposed. So there's control metrics, there's fingerprints, there's a Wizard of Oz curtain that people are still very much being influenced to pull levers on. And the data collection is really what's going to be the monetization source for the way that these AI models continue to evolve.
I think that OpenAI steals a search business from Google that will upend the marketing world, and that is what I'm keeping my eyes on. All right, so I want to thank everyone for listening. We'll be back in a week or two, depending.
We're having next week off.
Right, we're off next week.
Summer
but
holidays.
We'll be back. We come every Wednesday morning Eastern time. The conversation that we believe isn't happening in the digital business revolution. For those who want to find out more about Mike, where can people find you?
YourOpsGuy.com. You can learn a little bit about me and some of the work that I do there. You could always reach out, give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm usually around.
Michelle, where can people find out more about you?
excellencetakescourage.com or Michelle Peterson Clark on LinkedIn.
And I am Invictus.com for those who are looking for a digital business strategy. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you guys next week.
Follow us on Threads.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
There's another run there. Hold on a second. I am trying to. There we go. All right. We don't have an outro. Oh, yeah, we do.